Hello and welcome to Instant Transmission, a podcast where we discuss everything Dragon Ball and why spitting on people is just like not cool. The World Martial Arts Tournament has come to a pause as our heroes zoom off behind the mysterious Supreme Kai to save the world from almost certain doom. Krillin and Piccolo are stoned, Supreme Kai's buddy Kibito has been dusted, and who is even left to challenge the unthinkable might of Mr. Satan back at the arena? Hurry up and finish your signature technique because we're about to tried it, our way into the Babidi arc. I'm your host, Dayton, and once again, I'm joined by my co-host, Todd.
Hi.
Tonight, we'll be covering Kai's episodes 116 through 124. After our Z fighters have all entered the World Martial Arts Tournament, Gohan is ambushed by two mysterious men who steal his energy. The mysterious Supreme Kai and his partner Kibito reveal that they have plans to trail these men back to the evil wizard Babidi, who plans to harvest energy from the planet's greatest warriors in hopes of unleashing the evil threat Majin Buu upon the universe. After arriving at his spaceship, Babidi's henchmen, specifically the Demon King Dabura, kills Kibito in an instant blast and turns Piccolo and Krillin to stone with his spit. The only way to save these warriors is to defeat the Demon King, so our fighters make their way aboard Babidi's ship, where several levels of challenge await them. And with all of that covered, was there anything you wanted to add before we got things started, Todd?
No, I think we can kind of move right into the episodes.
Yes, which is episode 116, Don't Sell Super Saiyans Short, Vegeta and Goku's Full Bore Power. And this episode begins with Pui Pui, if I'm saying that correctly, launching himself at a very unimpressed Vegeta who's still in his regular form.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because Supreme Kai has basically expressed, like, don't take these guys lightly. Babidi's henchmen are the strongest in the universe. And Vegeta is having no problems, completely dodging all of Pui Pui's attacks without even going into Super Saiyan.
Yeah, and the Supreme Kai explained to Vegeta that Babidi needs to harvest their energy, so as they take damage, he's going to harvest it and use that energy to unlock Buu, right? And so Vegeta quickly puts together, well, I just won't take damage, and seems to almost be making sport about it.
I love this attitude that Vegeta has, and I mean, we get a good minute or two into this episode, and Vegeta has not been hit once. He's clobbering Pui Pui left and right, easily outpacing him, kicking him, punching him, just knocking him around this little spaceship, and it quickly turns to... I mean, you could see that Pui Pui's on the back foot. So Babidi says, oh, well, what if I give Pui Pui an advantage by sending him back to his home planet, and begins to cast a spell to do just that.
Yes, and they're transported to the planet of Zune. And this is where we see Pui Pui kind of gloating and dancing around, telling Vegeta that he stands no chance. There's no way he could even beat him on this planet because of the 10 times gravity of the world.
This is a great reveal, right? For us as the audience, because we've watched Goku train in up to 100 times gravity. We've watched Vegeta train in up to 300 times gravity without much issue at all. So this is, as Vegeta expresses, practically nothing for him.
I mean, it's funny because Pui Pui thinks he's at this advantage, but he quickly finds out how wrong he is when Vegeta begins delicately just dancing around each of his blows. And then we see him like on his toes, right? Showing how lightweight he actually is on this planet, almost mocking Pui Pui.
Yeah. Vegeta's dancing around Twinkle Toad like a boxer and continues to knock Pui Pui around regardless of the increase in gravity. And Pui Pui, out of anger, charges one last time as Vegeta meets his charge, just touching his fingers to Pui Pui's chest, and with a devilish grin, blasts Pui Pui into dust.
Yeah, and the Supreme Kai is kind of, blown away by how quick and how powerful the Saiyans are at this moment. And when he looks at them, they're not even entertained. This wasn't even something that they batted an eye at. And the Supreme Kai and Babidi are the only people who are surprised at how easily Vegeta was able to defeat his opponent.
Yeah, Vegeta even specifically expresses something to the effect of, Oh man, I drew a real weak opponent. That sucked.
Which is definitely a Vegeta move. But Babidi at this point decides that he's going to start taking these Saiyans seriously. And he sends out the monster named Yakan, a large bug-like scaly monster with a hell of an appetite is what I've got written down. I don't know what the heck he is.
Yeah, some sort of alien creature. It's hard to describe. I like the way that it's revealed to us, the audience. Like, this entire arc, at least this part of the Boo arc or the World Tournament arc, we kind of expressed it before with Videl, where Videl is kind of like learning about this world of the Saiyans and Gohan and how powerful they are. Now we're kind of seeing that from the Supreme Kai's perspective, but also the bad guy's perspective with Babidi and Dabura, because we get like, I mean, it's almost like this horror film scene as they reveal Yakan, who like is released from his prison and eats two of the other weaker minions of Babidi. And Dabura even expresses like, these Saiyans, they can't be strong enough to warrant sending Yakan, that monster, after them. So we're really talking up Yakan here, but we're going to see it might not be worth the talk up.
Yeah, and, you know, Yakan enters the room, and Goku almost looks a little disappointed at first. He even mentions something about his opponent's speed not really being up to snuff, and he's not sure if this is going to be an entertaining fight. And there's a brief exchange between the two where they kind of dive at each other. And it's revealed that Yakan has these blades in his arms. And they actually rip through a little bit of Goku's gi. And, you know, that's kind of fun. It shows that this guy is at least competent.
Yeah, I mean, Goku kind of acts surprised, like, oh, maybe you're faster than I was really expecting. I guess I had to dodge those blades. But again, Goku's still in his base form. And we're going to see quickly here now, Babidi is unwilling to take any more chances. He quickly uses his magic to give Yakan another home field advantage like Pui Pui, turning that room of the ship into Yakan's home world, which they say is on the edges of the universe and is completely pitch black. But apparently Yakan doesn't need light to see.
Yeah, the name of the planet is Ankoko, and mind you, there's no like actual relevance to these places. As far as I know, we don't actually visit any of these places in the future. But I like it because it's nice context to these characters, and to us it doesn't matter, but to the background of these characters, these are legendary planets, these are hellish places, these are I guess environments that around the world would matter to a lot of people. And I mean, look at Goku when he first visited King Kai's planet and how heavy that gravity weighed on him. And he was a fairly confident warrior at that time.
Yeah, I like this. It makes the universe feel more fleshed out. It's like a very small piece of world building and makes these minions feel more significant or more substantial. And we kind of continue the fight here, and Yakan, thinking he's gonna, deal with Goku without any issue since Goku can't see, quickly turns around on Yakan as Goku starts whooping Yakan's ass, and says, I don't really need to see. I could basically feel the vibrations of your movement through the air, but if I did really need to see, I can do that too, as he goes Super Saiyan.
It's really funny because what just occurred to me is Goku was able to sense his opponent through the vibrations in the air, right? Maybe I shouldn't bring this up, but didn't Gohan have to fight somebody while blind in Super, and he used a different method to sense his opponent?
Man, you're right. I actually don't remember how he did that. If they just said he was sensing his ki, or for Gohan,
he was radiating ki off his body and sensing the reflection was my memory.
Oh, you're right. So yeah, he had kind of like, I don't know, it's similar but different, right? Like the description is different, but it's almost the same effect.
Yeah, it's just I thought that was interesting that Gohan eventually down the lines goes through a very similar trial and comes up with a very similar solution, I guess, which Gohan was here to witness this. So I don't know. I kind of like that father son similar moment that they planted later on down the line.
There's actually a scene like that coming up here too that I want to point out. But before that, we get Goku going Super Saiyan to ward off Yakan, or basically just show off a little bit more than anything. Honestly, let's be real here. Yakan though says something to the effect of, "That looks delicious," and then just starts sucking in air. But it looks like he's actually sucking in the light from Goku, and eventually sucks in enough of the light to completely dismiss Goku's Super Saiyan transformation.
Yeah, and I mean it's kind of interesting because, Goku just had his Super Saiyan flipped off, and Supreme Kai watching kind of puts together that, hey, looks like he's feasting on your energy. You shouldn't do that. And Yakan, of course, goads him like, no, ignore that guy. Go ahead and flip it on. It's fine. And Goku does the most Goku thing, which is, well, okay, I guess I'll flip it back on. I'm going to feed you as much energy as I can and see how much you can take.
Yeah, Goku full on, I mean, he's gorging this creature, right? And there's a brief moment, you can kind of just barely tell, but there's a brief moment as Goku is really trying to pump out more energy that he turns into the Super Saiyan 2 form. You see his hair kind of spike up fully, and that's when he really like pushes almost like this ball of energy down Yakan's throat, causing the creature to just explode from energy overload.
Yeah, the Saiyans are just having fun at this point. The fate of the universe is in the balance, and they're just having fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about this for a moment. Dragon Ball has a problem, I'll say, in that it's a power level problem, a power creep problem, whatever you want to call it. They mostly just focus on, whoever's got the bigger power level dick, and they swing it around and they beat the other guy with the smaller power level dick. I actually like Yakan here because he has an interesting power that's unlike anything else that you see in Dragon Ball, honestly, that I can think of. Pui Pui was kind of boring, but Yakan has something that is like, okay, this is at least different from the norm.
Yeah, and I like characters like that. Characters who are crafty rather than just brute strength, right? Another one that comes to mind who is like that is actually Goldo, who wasn't necessarily a strong fighter, but he had strong techniques that he was able to use very well. And I wish we maybe could have seen more out of Yakan just to see what he could actually do. Unfortunately, he was put into kind of a no-win situation, but I mean, there's some creativity there. And I mean, these are single beat characters, right? They show up, they do their shtick, you get your laugh or your moment, and then we move on to the next one. But I don't know, there could have been something fun with this one.
Yeah, I like the concept. Again, they're throwaway characters. They're minions. They are, as we talked about before, they are our measuring sticks in this moment to show just how powerful Goku, Vegeta, and Gohan are. And I think really that pretty much wraps up the episode. The only other little detail that I wanted to point out here is when Goku like flashes that Super Saiyan 2 transformation, Vegeta clocks it. There's like just this brief moment of Vegeta being like, like he definitely notices that Goku can go Super Saiyan 2 at this point.
I like it. He's sizing up his rival.
Absolutely. That's going to be important moving forward too.
Yes. And speaking of that, the next floor is open and we're moving forward into the next episode, which is episode 117, Wither Victory, a Battle Royale Championship match. And we get to see Bobby freaking out over Yakan's defeat. And we see Supreme Kai freaking out over the Saiyans betting the fate of the universe over blood matches. And also King Deborah is powering up in some sort of meditation chamber for his match against Gohan. So we kind of get all these little things popping off all at once.
Yeah, lots of little beats. Supreme Kai and Future Trunks would get along, I think. But yeah, the meditation chamber, I don't know, it felt like a delay tactic or something. It felt a little bit, maybe a little bit silly, but I think it was kind of also a way for the writers here to cut away from the ship and cut back to the World Martial Arts Tournament, where they're trying to figure out what are they going to do now that half of their fighters have disappeared.
Yeah, and I mean, we do get some comical scenes where we get Trunks and Goten as Mighty Mask, and they're bumbling around, and they almost blow their cover about 20 times, right? They're kids. They're not really taking this as seriously as they should. They probably don't have any idea how much trouble they should probably be in for what they did.
Oh yeah, we'll see that they're going to find out here, but they haven't gotten caught yet, and we do kind of find that the tournament is going to proceed at Mr. Satan's suggestion. It's going to proceed forward as a battle royale because they have 5 contestants left. And
I love this as a way to just get this thing wrapped up. It's so clever of being like, let's just do one big fight.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It is kind of funny that somebody expresses to Mr. Satan like, oh, it's pretty brave of you that you want to do a battle royale since, you know, you're the reigning champion, and so the other 4 fighters are probably going to gang up on you.
And he just has that, you know, I'm dead inside, but I'm holding my posture kind of look where he's just like, oh, Jesus, what did I just do?
Yeah, he hadn't put that much forethought into this. And we kind of get to see, like, Killa is actually speaking to Mighty Mask or Goten and Trunks about doing that exact thing, about teaming up against Mr. Satan, and Trunks full-on blows him off. Our other contestant here, Jules, I think is his name, is trying to hit on 18, and 18 shuts him down. And as the fight begins, those two, Killa goes after Mighty Mask and Jules goes after 18, and they immediately get knocked out of the ring, leaving 3 fighters in the battle royale.
Yeah, and we knew that was going to happen, right? But we're just cutting to the chase at this point. Mighty Mask, aka Goten and Trunks, and 18 start eyeballing each other up, kind of realizing that whoever wins between those two wins the entire tournament. And the battle erupts pretty quick. And as soon as it starts, we see that Master Roshi begins to kind of focus in on Mighty Mask because things aren't exactly right there.
Yeah, Master Roshi's pretty keen on figuring things out here. And it's kind of hilarious how Mr. Satan is just completely disregarding it.
Well, I love the way Mighty Mask is fighting too, because his upper torso and bottom torso, I guess, are fighting completely independently of each other.
I mean, you actually see them, like, Trunks kind of like wobbling back on Goten's shoulders to dodge attacks, and then you'll see Trunks leaning forward as Goten, as the bottom half leans back to dodge attacks. It looks ridiculous, but it looks great. Like, they do a very good job of animating it such that they look like 2 people stacked on top of one another trying to fight as one cohesive unit.
I think it's hilarious. I think this is a gag done correctly. So I don't think we spend too much time on it either, especially this episode, because that about wraps up this one, unless I missed anything.
Ooh, no, God, that did go by quick. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up.
Which that brings us in episode 118, Stunning Youngsters, number 18's uphill battle. And I'm just going to go ahead and note that Deborah is continuing to power up in his meditation chamber. Want to make sure everyone's aware of that because the show made us aware of that.
This is, again, like I said, it's like a stalling tactic, right? Like this part feels weird. This almost feels like it could have been cut out. The only reason I feel like it should be there is for them to cut over to the World Tournament.
Yeah, but we cut back to the World Tournament, and Mighty Mask and 18 are continuing their battle. They're trading attacks with, at this moment, neither combatant is really landing anything significant. But Trunks and Goten decide that they're going to actually try and fight in tandem for an edge. So we see punches being thrown and kicks being thrown at the exact same time. So it's just this flurry of attacks flying towards 18.
I honestly love this because, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, normally, if you are one person, a single body, you don't have leverage. Even if you want to take flying into account or whatever, you can't get your body to move in a way where you can attack with both your hands and your feet. But if you're two separate bodies, that part doesn't matter. So it's just an onslaught of attacks from both bodies, and 18's struggling to keep up with it.
Yeah, she's being pushed back, and at some point, she just moves skyward, just trying to break some distance, and she does. And we see her follow up this little dodge with this double fist slam that craters our two young fighters into the arena floor. And there's a brief pause, and the two decide to change positions. And so we see the body of Mighty Mask begin to just like wiggle.
I completely forgot that this was a thing, but I love this so much.
Oh my God. It's so funny. So now Trunks is kicking and Goten is the fist.
Yeah.
It's great. And 18 takes her stance. And I love that she looks at Mighty Mask at this point and goes, he's moving completely differently. And I have no idea how to read this person anymore.
This is let's be honest, this is a throwaway fight. It's such a good throwaway fight.
I mean, it's just, those are little details where you're just like, well, if two kids are riding on each other's shoulders and fighting as one person, what would they do? And it's all of this stuff. This is everything that would happen.
And 18 expressing like they're fighting completely differently. You see Goten doing like goofy stuff like circling around 18, which is unlike anything that Trunks was doing when he was kind of the head of the Mighty Mask. I mean, they used the cloak as coverage to like switch places when they were lying face flat on the ground. All of this is fantastic. And there comes a point where Goten and Trunks are talking about Trunks giving Goten a toy, and Trunks saying, like, if you don't do well enough, you're not going to get a toy. And it distracts Goten, who then gets clobbered by 18, which is very in character for a 7-year-old kid. Like, super well done. Very good writing.
Oh, so yeah, they get cratered into the ground again. 18's getting cheers from her family, which is kind of motivating her. And it's at this point that the two boys decide that they need to change gears. And because they have a costume on, for some reason they think, well, I think we can get away with turning Super Saiyan. And so they do.
And unfortunately, it doesn't go the way that they think, because this is 18's kind of been like, I can't read this guy. He's got a long torso and like tiny limbs. What is going on? He keeps changing his fighting style. But this is the additional element that she needed to figure this out. And she basically says, hey, you remind me of two kids I know, Goten and Trunks.
They start freaking out. Trunks tries to fly one way, Goten tries to go the other way. We see them kind of stretch the suit of Mighty Mask then, and that's where 18 fires just a little disc blast through it, separating the two boys, revealing that she's been fighting two Saiyans, not one this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a brief moment where the announcer is like, 18 just cut Mighty Mask in half, and then you kind of see Goten's head peek out of the legs, and then Goten and Trunks ditch the outfit and continue to fight as if nothing happened.
Yeah, the announcer has to kind of call them off and say, no, you can't keep fighting. You're disqualified. What are you doing? And it's only when their mothers start yelling at them that they finally realize they're in trouble and fly off.
I love everything about this. It's a silly throwaway fight, but it's such a good running gag, and all of the little attention to detail makes this so much better.
I mean, I love it. It's fun. It's kids being kids, but I mean, it's also like they're trying to fight the adults, right? It's kind of their motivation to take on larger challenges. So I think it's a good thing to show them doing activities like this where they're trying to be like their dads. I don't know. I like it a lot.
Yeah, 100%. This does, however, turn into our only two remaining combatants are 18 and Mr. Satan. And I mean, Mr. Satan, honestly, realizes pretty quickly that he's screwed.
Yeah, he should have wore his brown pants that day because he knows he doesn't stand a chance in hell against 18. But we're going to have to figure out what happens in the next one because all we're left with is Goten and Trunks running into Videl as she arrives back from following the Z Fighters off to fight Bobby. And also, I'm sorry, Dabura emerges from the meditation chamber. So convenient timing.
Yeah, Dabura specifically is now on the floor with our oh no, actually not yet. He actually just emerges from, you're right.
That's all that happens. But we'll figure out what else happens in episode 119. Enter the headliner, the looming Demon King. And finally, Dabura, the Demon King, reveals himself to our Z Fighters, and he demands that all of them fight him at once. But of course, that would be no fun. So it's Gohan's turn.
I mean, Goku got his turn and Vegeta got his turn. So, this is kind of funny because Dabura is at first upset. He's like, don't mock me. I am the Demon King. And then this kind of turns into Dabura, like Babidi's like, don't worry about it. You're going to get energy. That's all we need. I'm going to send you somewhere. Where do you want to go? And Dabura's like, let the kid decide.
Yeah, he's so confident that he gives home field advantage to his opponent, right? And so they're teleported to a Earth-like rocky setting, which I feel like that's the default fighting area, is make it kind of barren and rocky. And so that's where they're dropped off at. So, I mean, part of it is got to be just insane hubris for Dabura to let himself, to put himself at a disadvantage like that. But also, he's a pretty tough guy because he's watched these Z Fighters fight at this point, right? So there's got to be some method to his madness.
It's interesting because you kind of feel like Dabura is not as savvy as far as reading energy and stuff like that. But like you said, he's at least watched these guys fight and he still feels pretty dang confident. So there's got to be something to his confidence in this case.
You want to know what else there's something to? The World Martial Arts Tournament, where Mr. Satan and 18 begin their battle. But in a hilarious twist of fate, I forgot about this, and I love this, 18 starts kind of drawing out the battle, talking to Hercule about maybe there's a way here for him to preserve his title. And he's not given much of a choice here because the only way for him to do that is by paying her out a lump sum of 20 million zeni, twice the amount of the prize for winning the tournament.
I love this so much because 18 doesn't care necessarily about the fame and the notoriety. She just wants the prize money. And Satan, though, Mr. Satan does value his title, the fame, all of that is important to him. So he basically agrees to it, and this is now turned into a WWE wrestling match as these two are about to sell this dive for 18 to Mr. Satan.
Oh my god. It's so fantastic. As soon as Hercule agrees, 18 just lets go of him and goes flying back across the arena like she just got, shot with a gun. It's hilarious. I mean, she's trying to sell this thing.
She's trying, but then she also lets Mr. Satan just pummel her as she does not react to the hits at all. It's such a goofy combination of faking this dive and also not faking the dive.
I mean, part of it is just 18 just knows that this whole thing is so stupid. She's not really invested in trying to act. She just wants to make sure it's convincing enough to where she gets her money.
Yeah, 100%. She even tells Mr. Satan in his ear, all right, I want you to throw me, and then you're going to use one of your finishing moves. And Mr. Satan obliges, launching into his megaton punch, punching 18 square in the face, landing a solid blow. And 18 just doesn't know how to react. She takes the hit. It doesn't do anything to her. And she's like, that's the best you got? and eventually, after about a 5-second pause, flies out of the ring.
And yes, we finally have our champion. Mr. Satan is the champion of world martial arts, which I think that's the title, right?
Yeah, definitely. He's the world martial arts champion. He tries to play it off. He says this is a new technique of his. I love this. I honestly love Mr. Satan's entire arc throughout this. I have a feeling some people probably hate him, but I think it's hilarious.
I mean, it's fun. And it also does 18 a service, because I doubt she would actually even want the attention of being the champ, right? The paparazzi and people bothering her. I don't think that would go over well.
I wouldn't put it past her to maybe murder a few people to get them to leave her alone.
That would do it. Yep. Mm-hmm. So I think everything worked out probably as good as it could have with this situation. But we're switching situations as we flip back over to Goten and Trunks, who are being filled in on what everyone else was up to. And to her disbelief, the kids decide to fly off towards the battle involving wizards and demons and Majins, despite her telling them how bad it was.
I love this so much. I love that Goten and Trunks are like, I mean, they're kids. They're 7 and 8 years old, but they are probably within the top 10 strongest people on the planet. I mean, can you imagine being that powerful and also being a kid and never having a reason to use that power? And now these bad guys show up and you're like, we could go be heroes.
And I mean, you also hear the stories of your fathers, right? All the stuff that Vegeta and Goku did, and you're kind of been living in their shadows your whole life. And you finally get that moment to, like, I'm going to go do something awesome just like they did. And so, I mean, I can only imagine the excitement that they had.
100%. It's great. It's, again, Goten and Trunks, phenomenally written in the Buu arc. I really like their characters here. But we kind of move forward, shifting over one more time to Gohan and Dabura actually engaging with one another. And Gohan leaps in without transforming, kind of getting a feel for Dabura. And it's not really one-sided. There's some cool techniques from Dabura with like some slashing of air and stuff. And there's actually a moment that I was kind of talking about earlier where Gohan dives into the water and then uses a ki blast from the water up at Dabura to distract him so that Gohan can come flying out of the air and kick Dabura in the side of the head, which is almost exactly like the technique that Goku used against Frieza with a Kamehameha beneath the water so he could kick Frieza.
Yeah, and I want to touch on Dabura's techniques a little bit, because I feel like the style points they put in this guy are top notch. Like, let's just go through some of the things we've seen him do, right? He's got spit that turns people into stone. That's interesting and gross, but also cool. He's able to breathe fire during this battle. So he just opens his mouth and lets forth a torrent of flaming ki, which is really darn cool. I mean, it's fun. It's fitting of his character. It's fun to watch. And on top of that, we got to see, like you were talking about, the kind of blade attack or whatever with the ki. I don't know what you call it, but like it cut like a scar into the earth. And finally, we see this technique where he's able to actually project images of himself out, and Gohan falls for one of these images and is attacked and caught off guard. So there's like 3 or 4 or 5 techniques that are all unique to Dabura that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, there's one where he uses like a telekinesis technique to fling rocks at Gohan, which isn't necessarily unique, but this guy's just got a plethora of cool techniques that he uses. Like, I mean, I love watching Dabura fight. It's super fun. Gohan, quickly into this fight, though, does go Super Saiyan. I will say it's interesting here. You have to kind of assume that Gohan's in Super Saiyan 2, if only because you have to guess that he's giving it his all here, because he's struggling against Dabura. And we did see him go Super Saiyan 2 when Kibito prompted him to go Super Saiyan. But there's no real good indication here. There's no lightning. His hair is drawn inconsistently with like normally his Super Saiyan 2 form, the back of his hair is spiked upward, and you see it spiked upward in some shots, and then other shots you see it has that kind of like flat shelf that it has when he's normally drawn in regular Super Saiyan. It's a bit of a mess in the animation department for Super Saiyan 2, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, it's also kind of a subtle difference where it doesn't jump out at you as much as some other transformations, right? Like from regular form to Super Saiyan, there's a big change. And I don't know, it's one of those ones where I don't blame them wholly for it, because it's like, hey, like there's some subtle differences here you got to notice, but I'm not going to rake them over the coals.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but that's also because it's such a subtle difference that almost gives more reason why they need to be on point with it so that you can actually tell. And so it just makes it tough. I would almost guarantee that he's in Super Saiyan 2. There's just not great indications as such.
You know, it's funny because during this fight, at the beginning of it, there's a pretty early moment where Gohan dives under the water, fires up a ki blast, and uses it to distract Dabura while he attacks him. And then later on in the fight, it happens again, like you mentioned, where it's kind of the literal reincarnation of the technique that Goku used on Frieza. But the second time, Dabura catches onto it and actually knocks Gohan back, kind of reading the attack the second time. So I do like that we see Dabura kind of evolving and kind of adapting to Gohan, but we don't really see the reverse happening as much.
I'm glad you pointed that out too, because there's even dialogue from Vegeta and Goku who are like, Gohan's not adapting, his patterns are the same over and over again. Like, they're both frustrated with Gohan. And Gohan, we already, as the audience know, Gohan has not been training over these past 7 years after he defeated Cell. He's kind of been taking it easy. The only training he's really done was a little bit with Goten for the tournament. And let's be honest, that's not going to be enough to get him back into fighting shape.
Yes, and most of that conversation happens in episode 120, A Heart of Evil Awakened, Vegeta, Prince of Destruction. And so Gohan has ripped off his tattered green outfit at this point, proving that he's serious. And it's at the beginning of this episode where we see those conversations happening between Goku and Vegeta. And it's a really brutal conversation. They're talking about how slow Gohan is, how predictable his moves are. And the Supreme Kai is kind of listening to all of this and is just in kind of awe. You see the shocked look on his face as these two Saiyans discuss how poor Gohan's fighting, despite what a good fight it is.
It's funny, right? Because, I mean, you could argue that Dabura has the upper hand for sure. But it's not a beatdown. Like, you don't feel like Gohan is wildly outclassed. He's hanging in there. But there is a moment where Dabura basically goads Gohan into attacking, and then as Gohan dashes forward, Dabura flings a spit wad at him, hitting Gohan's glove. Gohan gets his hand up to block it, and then Gohan rips the glove off and throws it to the ground to keep his entire body, like we saw with Piccolo and Krillin, turning to stone.
Yeah, and this is another example of Gohan's just not sharp. He's not paying attention. This is something he knows Dabura can spit people into stone. He also was goaded into attacking and letting his guard down like that. So he's not fighting smart at this point. I love that there's several examples of what Vegeta and Goku were talking about. And they showed you a few of those examples. Then they told you through their discussion, and then they showed you again. I think it's actually very, very well choreographed and just scripted.
I agree. I mean, there's both showing and telling here, which I like. I like getting to see the events kind of play out the way that our seasoned veteran fighters are kind of like seeing these details, and we as the audience get to also see them play out in the fight and have them kind of described to us. It's great. It's really well done. And the fight itself, this is not like one of the best fights in the series, but it's well done, it's interesting, it's engaging, and it tells us a lot about the characters in this fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one of those ones where I don't think the animation quality's top notch or anything like that. It's fine, it's
It's fine.
serviceable. But it's a fun fight and it kind of tells a story. And so if you want to call this a filler fight or something like that, go ahead, but it's really letting us know kind of the state of Gohan right now. And this is his measuring stick. And for the first time in a while, he's not measuring up as well as we would like. And I like that we get to see Gohan struggling a little bit and kind of, I guess, falling back on the back foot. And I don't know, it's a different story for Gohan than we see for Goku and Vegeta. So I think it makes him a more compelling character in this story arc right now.
Yeah, yeah, I very much agree, especially because Goku in the last arc, in the Cell arc, his entire goal was to leave Gohan in his place as the defender of Earth. And let's be honest, if Goku and Vegeta weren't here, Gohan would be screwed. Gohan would not meet that standard to protect the Earth.
Yeah, and one final thing of note, Dabura summons a sword out of thin air and almost cuts off Gohan's head. That's kind of cool.
I love this. I love even getting to see like the little blonde hairs that he cuts off of Gohan. Eventually, the exchange is pretty short with the sword as Gohan catches it and then snaps the blade off, which is kind of a bummer because it's a pretty cool exchange.
I mean, come on, man. We don't see nearly enough sword stuff happening.
Absolutely. I would take more swords in my Dragon Ball any day. But this kind of turns into Vegeta expressing his frustration with Gohan and expressing that Gohan's just not, he's not meeting their standard. And I think Vegeta even expresses like Gohan's representing the Saiyan race and he's failing right now.
Yeah, he kind of very boisterous and vocal about his disappointment in Gohan. He's losing his temper. He claims he's not here for any of these weaklings and that he demands that he just wants his match with Goku. He doesn't care about anything else that's happening right now because it's so uninteresting to him.
Yeah, yeah, which is hilarious, right? Because arguably the fate of the planet and maybe more is at stake, and Vegeta just has no fucks to give about it.
No. And the thing that really makes things go weird is Dabura notices this. And at this point asks Babidi to bring him back because he has an idea that will revive Majin Buu much more quickly. And the only hint we're given, which is a pretty big hint, is that this plan involves a heart tainted with evil.
Yeah, and we've been told at this point that that's how Babidi's magic works, is that it latches on to the evil in somebody's heart. And so Dabura and the rest are brought back to the ship. Dabura goes back into his elevator shaft and goes back to Babidi, and Dabura tells Babidi, this Saiyan, this person in our ship, has a heart of pure evil, and I think that you can use your magic to bring him onto our side to fight his comrades.
Yeah, and while this is happening, Vegeta begins lecturing, almost even scolding Gohan, telling him that he's soft and that every time he throws down the gauntlet, he represents the Saiyan race. On top of him fighting for the lives of two of his friends that are hanging in the balance at this moment. And Gohan kind of ducks his head a little bit and actually agrees with them, kind of noting how soft he's become.
I mean, I love Vegeta and I expect him to be savage, but that's a savage thing to say, right? Like, your two friends are out there turned to stone, and because you couldn't fucking seal the deal with Dabura, they are going to continue to stay that way because you failed.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like this is one of Vegeta's tactics of getting Gohan to do what he wants, kind of pulling whatever strings he needs to, because I don't think Vegeta actually cares about Krillin or Piccolo at all. I don't think they mean anything to him. I don't think Vegeta cares about Gohan succeeding. He only cares about Gohan doing what Saiyans do, which is fighting well. And watching a Saiyan not fight well is the most disappointing thing that I think Vegeta could ever witness.
It's his frustration because of, I mean, like you said, because he has pride. I mean, he has pride in himself for sure, but he has pride in the Saiyan race, and Gohan's at least half Saiyan. So, but in addition to that, like we said, Vegeta's time is running out to settle things with Goku. And so all of this is just a distraction. It's pissing him off that so much time is being wasted because Gohan can't beat Dabura when he should be able to easily.
And speaking of time running out, Vegeta's impatience begins to just overflow, and he actually threatens to blow up Babidi's ship, even if it means unleashing Boo and damning the planet and the entire universe. But he doesn't care. He even claims that the planet was never his home to begin with. And the only reason he doesn't blow everything up is because Goku steps in front of him and tells him to back down.
This is great. I really like this a lot. I mean, this shows where Vegeta's head is at. This shows what his priorities are. There is, I don't want to dive into this too much, but there is a part of me that is like, maybe they should have released Majin Buu, like attacked the ship when he was at, like, I think Gohan gave him about half of the energy that he needed. It would be a very different story, right? But it would be interesting to see if Majin Buu was resurrected with just Gohan's energy, how easily like Goku or Vegeta or even Gohan could defeat him.
Yeah, I mean, with all of them working in tandem, I'm sure we would have had a different outcome. But I mean, it's wild. A lot of things could have happened differently, but the direction that Toriyama chose to go with this story is definitely the most interesting, right? Because we get the most character development with the way that he's choosing to take this story. So it's character first, which I actually like that a lot about this, because everyone's kind of getting their time in the sun. We're starting to see at least a few of the characters' flaws at this point. But we're also seeing some good sides of characters because we're getting a little bit of time. Like, oh, well, we get a little Goten and Trunks. That's awesome. Oh, 18 actually gets a little bit of time in the limelight. That's cool. It's a well-written story at this point, and we get a lot of good character moments. But pretty quickly here, we're going to see that things are going to shift into more violence and still character growth.
Yeah. Speaking of character moments, specifically character flaws, this is the moment that we see Vegeta kind of like screaming and grabbing his head as if he's in pain. And Supreme Kai quickly picks up on, oh, Babidi's using his magic to try to take over Vegeta. And, you know, our heroes can't do much else other than just watch and kind of tell Vegeta, like, you know, fight back, don't give in. However, this kind of ends in Vegeta like lying on the ground, and they're kind of our other heroes are kind of asking him, hey, are you okay? And Vegeta looks up and you can see the trademark black M on his forehead to indicate one of Babidi's minions, or the mark of the Majin.
Yeah, this scene I think is excellent. We see Vegeta even striking up into a Super Saiyan form as he fights against Babidi's will. The Supreme Kai is trying to lean down and coach Vegeta on how to fight against it, which of course Vegeta refuses help from anybody. We see red electricity just surging around his body, even knocking Gohan back, as just the whole room is awash with different energies. There's this kind of mental battle that's going on, right? And I love at the end of this, because the Supreme Kai, once everything kind of settles and slows down, we see him just kind of calmly and grimly state that he is now beyond hope. And I love that statement. I love that they let that just kind of marinate a little bit.
It's a great detail. And now that we know that Vegeta has been taken over by Babidi's magic, Babidi uses another spell to shift the that floor of his ship back to the World Martial Arts Arena.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a wild ride, right? And the tournament's over at this point, and now suddenly all these fighters show back up. It's kind of an interesting moment. And after showing up, we see Babidi trying to command his new puppet. But to his surprise, Vegeta is not commanded so easily. And he tells Babidi that he's only here for Goku.
Yeah, this is. I'm going to have a lot to say about the next couple of episodes because this is getting into the meat and potatoes of Vegeta's character arc here. And I deeply love this. I did, however, send Dayton a couple of clips of comparisons to the old Funimation dub because there are some changes, some good, some not so good. But I think this episode kind of ends on Vegeta basically expressing that all he wants here is Goku, which I think kind of leads us into the next episode.
Yes, which is episode 121, I Am the Strongest, the clash of Goku versus Vegeta. And I love that at the beginning of this one, we see this just wicked smile creasing Vegeta's lips as he points at Goku and then shifts his fingers from a pointing position into a ki blast position and begins gathering an attack. We see Goku screaming out at Vegeta to stop, but Vegeta just cackles and fires his blast. We see Goku struggling against it until he's knocked aside, and the blast impacts into the audience, blasting clear through them, firing off into the background, and exploding into a large mushroom cloud that killed countless people, I'm sure.
This is fantastic. I love this so much. Goku is still in his base form. He doesn't have time to transform into Super Saiyan to truly push back against Vegeta's power in his Super Saiyan form. And I mean, the audience, I mean, you can see, like you said, countless people dead. Not only in the arena, though, the blast goes through the city. You can see holes through buildings behind it. The collateral damage is insane. But add to that the fact that we know we get cuts of the rest of our Z Fighter, like the rest of the team, I guess, if you want to say that, in Chi-Chi, Yamcha, Bulma in particular in the arena.
Yeah, and it's a confusing and somber and scary moment for all the Z fighters in the stands, and you know, they don't know what's going on. They don't know why Vegeta would do something like that. And as the crowd kind of panics and screams as they try to make their way out, we see the rest of everybody trying to piece together what the hell is happening because they don't know why Vegeta is just randomly firing off ki blasts into the crowd.
Yeah, this is a shock to, I mean, to Chi-Chi, the others, but specifically to Bulma. Bulma's like, why? What is Vegeta doing? Like, there's got to be some mistake or something that happened. Like,
a mistake, you say? Well, I can assure you it's not, because Goku, Gohan, and the Supreme Kai are continuing to try and plead with Vegeta, and his response is another ki blast into the crowd that claims so many more lives. So at this point, it's not an accident. This is intentional, and everyone knows it.
This ki blast too, we specifically see, was probably a few feet away from blowing away Vegeta's own wife, as Bulma's like very nearby the destruction that Vegeta has wrought on the arena in this moment.
I mean, it's pretty crazy, and Goku is pressuring Vegeta, demanding that he let him know why he willingly let Babidi take control of him. Now, this is kind of a huge reveal at this point because we all assume that Vegeta fought back, but it's kind of revealed that Vegeta may have just let it happen so that way he could settle his grudge match with Goku.
Yeah, and Goku catches on to this, right? This is, I mean, we'll have to we'll get into it, but we'll have to dive into Vegeta's reasons, because I think that it might be a little bit further in, but Vegeta basically expresses that one of his reasons for letting Babidi get inside and give him, this take him over in a way is that he felt like if he didn't do this, like if he didn't make himself the bad guy, that Goku wouldn't honor this fight. He wouldn't spend the short amount of time that he has left, maybe 18, 12 hours, whatever. He wouldn't give Vegeta the satisfaction of completing their fight because he was too focused on the bad guys who are threatening Earth. This is interesting, though, because this is a subtle difference I want to point out from the original dub. And I want to hear your take on this, Dayton. In that, in the original dub, Vegeta expressed the reason he let Babidi take him over is because Babidi's powers enhance a person's natural abilities beyond the norm, beyond what they can really control, which is what we saw in Spopovich and Yamu. And Vegeta says when he saw Goku go Super Saiyan 2, when he saw him fight Yakan, he understood that Vegeta still didn't stand a chance against Goku. Like, the gap was still too far between them. So he let Babidi take him over to close that gap. So, I mean, while those two different things are expressed between the original Funimation dub and the Kai dub, both could still be true. But how do you feel, Dayton? What do you think about those two different reasons behind that? Which one do you think sounds better to you?
Ooh, I mean, it's a tough one. I could see Vegeta rationalizing in his head, like, oh, shoot, I didn't realize that he had hit that level of power, and I only have, 12 hours to make up that difference. I'll strike a deal so that way I can make that fight. I can definitely see that happening. I guess in the original, that reason makes it a little bit more tragic in my eyes, because it was kind of his desperation to live up to the standards that he had set for himself. Like, he wanted to beat Goku. He's got one chance to beat Goku, and if he doesn't seize on it, he will probably never get that chance again. And so he'll live the rest of his life in the shadow of a person he can never overcome. And so I think there is some definite desperation in that. In Kai, I don't know. I felt like the reasoning wasn't as clear, though. Like, I didn't quite understand it, other than just he wanted to have the fight. And so getting Goku to fight at his full strength by letting himself be turned, quote unquote, evil. I don't know. It works. Like, I do believe it. I don't think it's a bad reason, but I don't think there's as much tragedy in it as there is in the original dub.
That's an interesting take on it. I'm glad to kind of hear your take on that, because I think mine was a little bit different in that, and I mean, everybody's going to quickly find out, I actually like the original Funimation dub, and a lot of the dialogue and the music and a lot of the choices in the original more than the Kai version. This is actually one where I think I like the Kai version just a little bit better, even though I think both are good. The reason I think I like the Kai one better is because I like your take about the tragedy, Dayton, but without having thought about that originally, I was thinking that Vegeta has always, even though he's kind of expressed like, oh, I was born into power, he's always still thought that working hard to get power, he's valued that. And for him to give that up to let Babidi increase his power unnaturally without him having to work for it is a little bit strange, but it's strange for his character. But at the same time, he's kind of like, you could imagine him kind of weighing those two things in his mind, right? Is it more important for me to earn my power, or is it more important for me to beat Kakarot?
Yeah, and I don't know, it's tough. and for me, it's not like a clear winner sort of thing. I really have to sit here and think about it. It's one of those ones where I might sleep on it and wake up and have a different opinion tomorrow. Because it is a
Yeah.
very, they're both compelling reasons. And you're right. I honestly didn't even really think about that difference between the original dub and this one. So I don't know. If anything, I can be happy that I've got two different ways to look at this, and I'll just pick whichever one I like better.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. And it's funny because I think actually between talking with you about it and talking it out loud, I think I've almost convinced myself I like the other way better. I think I like the old Funimation dub better because, like you said, it's a little more tragic, but I also like the idea of Vegeta kind of weighing those two things in his mind of like, earned power versus defeating Kakarot. Like, and for him to give in a little bit of his pride just to beat Kakarot, I actually do like that idea a lot.
It's a lot of fun. I at this point, I'm happy to have both takes because this is something that, I don't know, I'll probably in my free time tomorrow just be thinking about this because I don't think I can't come up with a clear winner tonight.
Yeah.
I think they're both really great. I like the logic in both of them. Shoot, what was the reason in the manga?
It's probably closer. So Kai has been more true to the manga. I don't know which one it is definitively. I don't think I haven't read that part of the manga in a long time, but Kai has changed things so that they are more close to the manga. So it's probably closer to that one.
Okay. Yeah. Then I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to sleep on that one. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I'm glad we've got two different takes on this, and they're both good. Like it's good storytelling either way. No matter which one you've seen, you're at least seeing a compelling reason.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, we dove into that one pretty hard, but man, there's so many great beats in here for Vegeta. Another one that is coming up immediately following that idea is this kind of conversation. And again, this is kind of diving into Vegeta's psyche here, as Gohan is basically like, stop this, Vegeta, this isn't you. And Vegeta like throws energy at him to knock Gohan on his ass. And he's like, nothing else matters. All I want here is my fight with Kakarot. And I mean, Goku kind of powers up to Super Saiyan. This turns into the Supreme Kai trying to intervene and talk them out of it. And this turns into a dialogue that I think Dayton and I have taken the specific notes on here, where this is a very different dialogue as Vegeta expresses why he feels the way he does and why he wants this fight with Kakarot so badly. I have the old version, and Dayton, you have the new version with Kai. Should I? Which order do you want to do?
I'll go first since we're on Kai right now.
Okay.
So, and I want to point out that the music they pick for Vegeta's monologue right here, it's this very kind of triumphant, regal music that sits to the background of a Saiyan Prince monologue. So I actually really enjoy the music that they picked here. But Vegeta begins with as he's talking to Supreme Kai, who tells him like, you're betting everything on your foolish pride. And Vegeta responds, my foolish pride? To a Saiyan, pride is all. I don't give a damn about Majin Buu. All I want is my fight with Kakarot. Here and now, I will emerge as the victor once and for all. There's no reason he should ever have bested me. He and I are both Saiyans. I was royalty among our people. I was a prince, yet he prevailed. He even had the impotence to save my life before, and that is an indignity I cannot bear. And I love that last line. That is an indignity I cannot bear.
That line is a good line. I'm going to just, before we discuss it, I'll just read the old version, the old Funimation dub version, and we can kind of talk about our thoughts on them and the compare and contrast. But in the original Funimation dub, the Supreme Kai says, don't you see the universe matters more than your meaningless squabble? And Vegeta responds, meaningless, huh? What do you know of meaningless? Spend most of your life ruled by another. Watch your race dwindle to a handful, and then tell me what has more meaning than your own strength. I have in me the blood of a Saiyan prince. He is nothing but a joke, and yet I have had to watch him pass me in strength. My destiny thrown to the wayside. He's even saved my life, as if I were a helpless child. He has stolen my honor, and his debts must be paid.
Very good. Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, I'll be honest, and Dayton and I talked about this a little bit before the recording. I like the old one better. Man, the feeling and emotion just on those first lines that Vegeta delivers, like, meaningless, huh? What do you know of meaningless? And then just bearing his soul about all these presumed slights that Vegeta feels he's had from Goku. I mean, hearing it put into words is just, it hits me right in the heart. I love it.
I think this is one where I just agree with you. I think the original was better. I also like the meaningless squabble. I like the usage of those terms rather than your pride, because it's a little bit too on the nose, right? It's a little bit, you're telling me what to feel a little bit too much. Whereas in the original, it's, I don't know, there's some room to run. There's more depth to the conversation that they're having where you can actually read into it a little bit more. And so I like that original conversation and just the words they chose to use. And I think it's just a little bit better. This is a little bit too just telling me what's going on. And there's in Kai.
Yeah, I agree. That part that you mentioned, I 100% agree with. I really like Supreme Kai calling this a meaningless squabble. The fact that in the Kai version, the Supreme Kai points out like something to the effect of, I think he says, you need this to like fix your pride. I don't like that the Supreme Kai points out that this is a point of pride for Vegeta necessarily. I like Vegeta being the one to say, pride is important to me, and Kakarot is the one who has stepped on that pride. It feels better for Supreme Kai to be like, no, this is stupid. This is meaningless. Why are we even doing this? And then Vegeta is the one to say, because of my pride.
Yeah, I think the original is better. This feels like something that's in Kai, it feels like it's scripted to go a certain way, whereas the original feels like a little bit more of a natural progression of a conversation. And I don't know. I think Vegeta's words have a little bit more emotion to them in the original. I mean, the Kai version does the job, but it's kind of telling me what's going on. Whereas the original, I'm kind of feeling what's going on, and I prefer that.
Yeah, and I, like you said, and I think you expressed this before the recording too, in that if we didn't have the original version to compare the Kai version to, the Kai version would be just fine. Like it's suitable, it does the job. But when you compare it to the old one, like I had to go back and I had to look at the original because I remember this hitting me very hard when I watched it the first time. And the moment just didn't hit me the same in the Kai version. It's a little flatter,
right? It's not as, I don't know, it's not as bombastic or it's not as impactful as it was the first time. And you feel the emotion so much more out of Vegeta in the original dub. The words just seem to land harder. And I don't know, this narrates to me what's going on and what's happening, whereas the original, I kind of felt what was happening and I could piece it together. The words didn't need to tell me exactly.
Yes, I very much agree. I like that Vegeta is more describing his slights in the old one, rather than just, I'm gonna beat Kakarot. It just doesn't hit the same. But
it's not the same. It's fine, but like we went from pretty damn amazing to passable, and you have to take note of that, right? It's like we had something awesome. Just recycle it next time, man.
Yes, I agree. I mean, we kind of talked about this too, where I'd be curious, like, there's only one line in all of this that I recognized as being verbatim, word for word. I'm curious if some things got changed just for the sake of changing them. But like you said, Dayton, if it worked, recycle it, man. Some of these things worked beautifully in the original.
Well, I think we've covered that. It's what it is. It's fine in Kai, but this moves to Goku, who now demands that Babidi move them to a place where they can actually settle their grudge. And Babidi actually agrees. And so the battle is stopped for a moment and moved to a new location that's very similar to every other fighting location on Earth, which is kind of a rocky, barren, wasteland-ish place.
I think most of the video games have a fighting stage called Barren Wasteland. So,
yeah,
or
it's
at
that
least
map.
one.
If you've seen that map, we're there.
Yeah. I mean, I love the moment with Goku kind of threatening the Supreme Kai when the Supreme Kai steps in front of him. I mean, Goku knows Vegeta probably better than anybody except for maybe Bulma, and even Bulma probably doesn't understand elements of Vegeta that Goku understands.
Well, I mean, there's a certain level of being crazy that goes with being a Saiyan that only another Saiyan would understand. They're on their own unique wavelength.
100%, which is, I mean, that's a part of their bond in this twisted kind of way. But I think that's part of why Goku threatened the Supreme Kai. Goku realized Vegeta's not going to let this go. This has to happen. And if it's going to happen, I'm going to at least make sure that nobody gets hurt or nobody else gets hurt as this goes down.
Yeah, and it's kind of around this point that Supreme Kai kind of accepts that Goku's fight with Vegeta, like, it cannot be stopped. And so he comes up with a game plan where him and Gohan are going to go back to Babidi's ship, and they're going to dispatch the Wizard and the Demon King before Buu can be resurrected. And Babidi's paying attention to all this, by the way. He sees this conversation unfolding, and it's at this point that he starts pulling his puppet strings on his newest puppet. And once again, it doesn't quite go the way he thinks it's going to go.
Again, this is going to be another deep dive for me because this is excellent. Vegeta is, I mean, he's writhing in pain as Babidi is flexing his control over Vegeta. And you see Vegeta kind of like get back up and say, no, all I care about is fighting Kakarot. I'm not going to let you control me. I have to temper my opinion here because there's almost certainly an element of nostalgia for me here, but this is basically the quote or the scene where in the original Funimation dub, Vegeta kind of says, "There's one thing a Saiyan will always keep." His pride, and he screams out pride, and it's like the visual is beautiful seeing him kind of power up in the moment. And they changed it here where he says, I have in me the pride of a Saiyan prince, and screams on Prince. And it just, maybe it's the nostalgia, it just doesn't land the same for me.
See, this is one of those ones where I think I'm more or less fine with either interpretation. To some degree, I think the pride thing gets run into the ground a little bit with Vegeta, so I don't mind kind of changing up the note a little bit and having him scream about something else. One thing I will point out, though, is that when Babidi's pulling on those puppet strings, both the first time at the arena and now, one thing the original does a little better is showing that struggle that Vegeta's having. So in the Kai version, Vegeta kind of just holds his head and bobs back and forth and just kind of yells, and he pushes through it. In the original, he actually like falls to the floor. You see him kind of writhing in pain as he pushes against it. Like it is a real painful struggle for him. And I don't think Kai really gets how difficult this is across enough. It just seems like Vegeta is more or less just able to kind of do what he wants. Whereas in the original, it does look like it's his will at its max level that's able to hold back Babidi's control.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. This one is probably just more, again, nostalgia and preference here. That I like the original Funimation dub with the yelling of his pride and everything. And I could see your point too about the pride thing kind of getting run into the ground a little bit. But it's, I think both ways, it is still a great scene. It's great seeing Vegeta fight against Babidi. And I mean, Babidi and Dabura are both like, how does somebody fight against their own possessed body? Like, that almost doesn't even make sense. What kind of ego or will does this Saiyan have that he's able to do that?
I mean, I love it. It's you might be able to like get your mind control spell on Vegeta, but he's so much in his own head that you can't even beat him out.
It's so good. And this kind of results in, everybody realizes this is inevitable at this point. Goku says he's going to fight Vegeta. The Supreme Kai basically says, okay, well, if this is how things are going to go, I'm taking Gohan. We're going to continue into the ship and we're going to try to stop Babidi. We're going to try to, if we have to fight Dabura, we're going to stop Majin Buu from being resurrected. But now they're on a ticking clock because the fight with Vegeta and Goku is going to give Majin Buu the energy he needs to be resurrected.
Yeah, so Boo's revival is assured, and now it's a race against the clock. And that wraps up this episode, bringing us into episode 121, Countdown to Revival, Crush Babidi's Ambitions. And yeah, Gohan and Supreme Kai make their way aboard Babidi's ship, and, they battle through a few henchmen and are eventually invited deep into the belly of the beast.
Yeah, Babidi is basically opening up the ship for them, letting them come through, mostly because he doesn't want them to attempt to blast their way in and awaken Majin Buu, which is kind of funny because it's weirdly like our bad guys and our good guys are aligned in this idea that nobody wants Buu to be jostled and woken up early.
Yes. So it's a tense situation for everybody. Also, we've been hinting at Buu for quite a few episodes now, so there's a lot of build up to this character, and like I'm getting antsy to kind of see him. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think that's probably part of the intent with the writing here, right? But we're not going to get that yet. First, we are, however, going to get round 2 of Goku versus Vegeta. And I personally really enjoy this fight.
Oh yeah, I mean it's Goku and it's got your boy, right? Because like you said, you're a Vegeta fanboy.
Absolutely.
I've got to ask you, well, let's get into it in a minute. Let's get through some of this fight and then I'll ask you some of the deeper questions. But
sure.
This one begins with it starts off pretty quick with Vegeta landing this just vicious knee and elbow right off the bat. And Goku's knocked down hard before he bounces back to his feet, and then the two lock arms and begin trading knees in the most hilarious fashion.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but it's the animation is on point on this one, or at least it kind of fluctuates a little bit, but this part of it is really, really well done. We kind of move forward as Vegeta gets in a solid headbutt and then delivers blow after blow to Goku's stomach. Goku coming back with a few blocks and returning knees to Vegeta's chin, knocking Vegeta back into a rock. And then they just like basically power up like pushing each other's auras against one another, and then it turns into just another flurry of blows back and forth.
Yeah, we see this battle we're getting that feeling that it's slowly escalating and escalating and escalating as they're fighting, as just the auras get better and the intensity gets just off the charts. And all of this is coming at a cost, though, because Majin Buu's resurrection is being fed pretty heavily off of this.
Absolutely. There is also, we'll kind of skip forward, but there's one moment that I want to point out because it's like a throwback or a tie-in where Vegeta and Goku have a clash of just like full extension fists in each other's faces, punching each other across the cheek, heads turned back away, which is a very similar visual to one of the connections that we had with Goten and Trunks in the arena fight prior to this, as they punched each other in the face, heads turned. I mean, it's a common shot in Dragon Ball, but it's really fun to see father and son and the tie-in between those two fights.
It is really cool. And I mean, so close together, right?
Yeah.
And I actually, man, there's some just very, very well done shots in here. I mean, we get a brief scene of Boo's egg thing charging up, but that doesn't matter. We're going back to the fight, and it cuts back to, we see a badly damaged Goku kind of gripping onto the edge of a mountain. And we see Vegeta lifting him up and throwing him back against a wall, then creating these kind of neck and limb bindings out of ki that just hold Goku to this rock. And is this one that you prefer, the original or the new one? Because there's some conversation that happens between the two.
Yeah, this is another one where I sent Dayton the clip of the original Funimation dub. This one's, I'm a little bit torn on this one, and I think we'll have to talk about this because there's some dialogue here as Vegeta expresses, like, you, Kakarot, have been a problem for me. You've humiliated me. You've hurt my pride. And this turns into Vegeta just like full on pummeling Goku in the rock. But then it turns into a bit of a flashback as it shows like Goku and Vegeta fighting when Vegeta first landed on Earth in the Saiyan arc. And then shows, Vegeta getting like blown away by Goku's Kamehameha, and then cuts to Goku defeating Frieza on planet Namek as a Super Saiyan, and then cuts to Vegeta lying injured on the ground as Gohan in his Super Saiyan 2 form defeats Cell with a Kamehameha. And in the Kai dub, there's no dialogue. It's strictly visuals and music. But in the old Funimation dub, there's a full running dialogue as Vegeta expresses how he felt when all of these events occurred. And I think I'm torn, but I think I lean a little bit more towards the old one. I like getting this peek into Vegeta's head and into his emotions here. What do you think, Dayton?
See, that I struggle with this because I'm a big fan of show don't tell, and I like Vegeta's monologue over this. I think it's pretty decently done. And I also think that it's kind of a long silent scene for Dragon Ball, especially in the middle of a fight. So I feel like it drags out a little long to where it gets a little awkward by the end of it. Like it should have flashed through him a little quicker, but I don't know. I haven't made up my mind fully on this one. I think I would prefer the silent version if they would have done it just a little bit more smoothly, a little bit quicker. But with the long pauses and all the different scenes, I feel like the monologue fits better over that specifically here. So I'm actually not a huge fan of either, if that makes sense. I like what they tried to do. I don't like the execution fully.
Yeah, I mean, I think I largely agree with your take on it. I think I like the concept. Like, I like the idea. I know the original Funimation dub had the problem where they they didn't like having silence in any scene, whether it was, musical silence or letting silence hang between characters and dialogue. And I think that was generally a problem. And so I agree with you, Dayton, that I kind of like what they tried to do here in letting us, the audience, just kind of like live out these scenes and remember these scenes and try to feel what Vegeta felt in those moments. But I think it's rare that we get a peek into Vegeta's head and into how he feels. And the dialogue in the original dub of him basically expressing, like, I came to Earth, I found you, this lowly Saiyan, who bested me in combat, a prince who had been told that he was destined for greatness. And then the tyrant who held me as a slave my entire life, who I wanted revenge against, you, not me, killed that tyrant. And on top of that, achieved the power of Super Saiyan before I did. And then, to add shame on top of all of those events, your son, this 11-year-old child, succeeded where I failed against Cell. And hearing Vegeta say all of that, like put those thoughts and feelings into words, I really like that. I wouldn't say that it is executed in the best way, but I like getting to hear that from him.
Yeah, and this is Vegeta's biggest like step into the limelight we've had, right? And so now it's about Vegeta and his thoughts and his story and giving him his time to speak and think and feel. And I don't mind that happening here because it's his time. It's his spotlight. And I don't mind them using it. I feel like neither really scratched the itch as much as I needed it to, especially since we just had a monologue last episode that more or less went over most of this anyway.
That's a fair point, too. Again, I'm a Vegeta fanboy, so I could listen to this man talk about his edgy feelings all day long. But you make a good point that he did basically give a concise rundown of this. This is just kind of like expanding on how he felt about those moments.
I don't mind it, something like this being here, though, because he's really tapping into those emotions as he's fighting, right? He's clenching his fist a little harder because he's finally getting all these things out of him that have been weighing on his shoulders.
I mean, yeah, we knew, we largely could guess that Vegeta felt this way. He's expressed his hate for Kakarot multiple times before, but we've never really heard him say, like, put it into words and express it clearly.
Really define like all the victories that Goku has stolen from him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love what this gives way to, by the way, which is Goku breaking free of his prison and actually using the chunks of rocks he was bound to as cudgels on his arms as he just slams both of them into Vegeta. I don't know why, but this move is so damn cool.
I will never not think that this is cool. Like, this is a beautiful shot. I will say, and I hate to be a downer on the shot because it's really cool, I've been quiet for the most part about the music for the Kai version for this. This scene in particular, and there's a number of scenes where the music is completely off point. They're using, like, Kai, I think Kai was produced, or at least this version of Kai in the Buu arc was produced around the same time as Dragon Ball Super. And so they're using a lot of the same music. The issue, though, is that they put the music for Super in the weirdest of spots. And this is one of them where it's like a do 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 do. And you're like, what, are we going to a circus right now as these guys are having like this emotional moment and beating the shit out of each other?
It's really weird. Like it's one of those ones where, I don't know, it almost feels like like, I don't know. It shouldn't be here. I'm sorry. I was really trying to devil's advocate this one, but this was a tough one to try and sell.
I know. I've been a big Debbie Downer for the music in Kai. I feel a little bit bad, but at the same time, come on, guys. Like, do better.
Hey, man, it's not polite to rip in someone's playlist, okay?
I mean, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, after Goku beats Vegeta with some rocks, we see him just pursuing after him, and just the battle continues raging on. And this is the battle in full swing at this point. This is the stuff that I really was here for.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, they continue. They have an exchange of, like, ki blasts. Vegeta tries to impale Goku on a stalactite, and then they have another clash of ki blasts that kind of, like,
so I want you to be honest. Did you have to Google the difference between stalactite and stalagmite before you settled on it? Because I might have.
I have a mnemonic. I don't know if that's the right word. I have a way of remembering it in my head, and it's that stalactite has a T in it, which means top.
Well, shoot, I'm stealing that. Why didn't you tell me that earlier? No.
It's the only way I remember the difference between stalactite and stalagmite.
All right, well, I'm the only idiot on the podcast. Anyway, so Goku prevents himself from being impaled. He breaks the hold that Vegeta has him in. And then, I'm sorry, but we get the lamest fucking Gallic Gun versus Kamehameha, like, blast that happens ever. This is terrible. Like, how dare you name these techniques and then not show us jack shit?
All right. I was going to let this go, but I had to say it now because you brought it up. This is not a fucking Gallic Gun. Vegeta has his hands out in the exact position he uses for his final flash. The blast is yellow, and he still says Gallic Gun, which is purple.
Geez, no. Oh, I mean, I was ripping on it, so I didn't pay too close attention to it, but that's a lot wrong. That is so much wrong with this scene.
I kind of wanted to let it go, but I also was like, how did you fuck that up?
Yeah. So not only is it just like, they're inside a cave, and it's just, they charge up their signature moves. I'm going to use air quotes here, because they may or may not be their signature moves. They fire them, and then it just cuts to outside the cave and just this kind of piddly flash, and then it's over. So it's everything about this, which should have been awesome, was really not awesome.
Yeah, I love this fight. This is kind of like a low point in the fight. I wish they wouldn't have given Vegeta dialogue to say Gallic Gun because it's the wrong technique, or I wish they would have said Final Flash or something different here. I
probably wouldn't have cared, but it's Goku and Vegeta and Beam Struggle. You can't not do that better. I'm sorry, but that's like one of the top 3 most iconic moments in all of Dragon Ball, and you allude to it and then skimp over it.
That's a great point, because this is a beam struggle between Goku and Vegeta we already have, and we just moments ago had a flashback to the iconic clash between the Kamehameha and the Gallic
We just
Gun.
talked about the flashback of it. Oh no.
Literally 2 minutes before this, they had the flashback to that exact scene, and this pales in comparison. Like, not even on the same scale. Shouldn't even be in the same discussion, honestly.
Oh man. So is the same music still playing through right now, or did they change the music at this point?
They changed it. It's better. It's one of the good, like, super tracks. It's one of the good ones that they use for combat.
to ask you that before I said that I like the change in music at this point. I pointed out specifically that I like the music that they are now using.
No, it's one of the good ones. I think it's one of the ones that they use maybe in the Tournament of Power. But it feels good.
It's a little electric guitar with a lot of horns and chanting with a decent pace to the rhythm. So it seems like it's actually carrying the fight at this point, whereas before it wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We should also point out when Kai does the music well, because I've been bashing on it.
We do get a brief scene of Babidi transporting everyone outside the ship. because they don't want to be inside the ship when Boo wakes up. So neat. We do get a little bit of internal struggle with Gohan where he's trying to remember all that energy he had tapped into for his fight against Cell, and he's kind of struggling with it, right? Even mentions that, man, it's been so long, I don't even remember how I summoned it forth. So it's once again showing Gohan's out of practice and probably in above his head at this point.
Yeah. He does, however, power up. He transforms into presumably Super Saiyan 2. Again, though, this one's an interesting one because he does transform and his hair looks like Super Saiyan 2, but there's no lightning. He has the aura. There's no lightning, though. So maybe they are kind of alluding to the fact that he can't. I mean, they can't, though. Like, because he transformed into Super Saiyan 2 in the tournament. So I don't know. It's weird. He just can't. He's not as strong.
I think they're just flubbing the animations at certain points. It doesn't really matter. He's not fighting right now, but we flip back over to, and I want to say that this sequence is, I think, my favorite sequence in the Goku Vegeta fight. I think the animation is at its best here. I don't know if you saw the same thing, but I thought it really picked up at this moment.
It's definitely up there. There's one or two shots in the beginning that I really, really like, but this one's also very good. They do a very good job with. You can kind of tell the
perspective's really good here too.
Oh yeah, for sure. But you could tell the difference between Super Saiyan 1 and Super Saiyan 2 here. You could see the lightning on Goku and Vegeta. You could see the hard edges in their hair and everything. And then the blows, the attacks there's flurries of blows. You get to see this upward perspective of Vegeta, a couple of heavy ki blasts that they dodge, heavy blows to the stomach. Really, really cool fight.
I mean, I love the way it kicks off too, where we get this. It's a really cool perspective where we see Goku actually flying towards the camera. And as he's about to pass by, we see a fist reach out and it actually impacts Goku in the face. We see the knuckles go into the cheek hard, and we see his head and lips turn, his hair flying to the side as blood spurts from his mouth from the impact. And we see him go flying back as Vegeta zooms into camera from behind our perspective as he pursues Goku. I love the lead off with this, how much detail was in it. And I mean, it's a 3-second scene and just looks so freaking cool.
Yeah, actually, your points about the perspective there are really, really good. The first shot it's not quite, but it's almost from Vegeta's perspective as Goku flies in at him, and then Vegeta swings the punch, hitting him in the face. It's cool. It's borderline akin to the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie and some of the cool dynamic perspectives they have in there.
Yeah, I love the creativity of it. I had to point out that scene in as much detail as I could because whoever decided to take that scene in that direction is a genius, because I've not seen very much like that. We do see Goku catching himself mid-flight, though, returning a punch of his own to an off-guard Vegeta to his own jaw. And we see them kind of exchanging some more blows as Goku darts into the air to gain some distance. And the two fighters take a moment to tell each other how awesome they are.
Stroking those Super Saiyan peens in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of cuts back to Babidi, Dabura, Gohan, and the Supreme Kai. And in all of the delaying that Gohan has done in trying to talk himself up to fighting against Dabura again, Babidi looks at the gauge for Majin Buu's power, and it is full.
And that's where the episode ends, which is awesome. I love cliffhangers. Man, I mean, this is... Oh, man, I got to say, Todd usually kind of helps pick out the starting and stopping points for most of the episodes we cover. And the last couple of times, he's picked very good points to leave me on cliffhangers where I want to keep watching and have to stop myself, because this is a big one.
Yeah, I've kind of been blue balling Dayton in our episode gaps here. But this one, I think this one, too, actually is... at least according to like maybe the wiki, is like the official end of the World Tournament arc, and then proceeds into what they consider the Majin Buu arc.
Well, everything's all messed up because we were following Kenzenshu, which didn't actually have the episodes for the version we're watching, which we found out the hard way. And so now we're on the wiki, and the wiki labels the string of episodes we just watched as the Babidi Saga. And so this is specifically its own saga based off the wiki, if you want things to be even more confusing.
It's a hot mess. This anything to do with Kai and the Buu arc is a whole hot mess, if you haven't gathered that already.
I mean, it's thrown us off a couple times. We thought we had things in order. Turns out we didn't. You really got to pay attention to what you're reading or watching, because you could be just way off in the weeds in something that isn't what you expected it to be.
Yeah, 100%. But this is the last episode that we're covering for this podcast recording. I mean, I had a lot of strong opinions about this one. What did you feel about this set of episodes overall, Dayton?
Ooh, so this set of episodes, man, I got out of this set of episodes with a couple different opinions. The overall feeling was great, though. I honestly had a lot of fun watching a lot of these episodes. Even the filler fights in the tournament arc with 18 and Mighty Mask and Mr. Satan, even those fights were fun, even though you could very well consider those filler fights. And there was even a little bit of character development with them, and motivation, and glimpses into how these characters are as far as their personality and stuff. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Goku and Vegeta's fight is very good. I wish, and I'm being selfish about this, one of my critiques of it is not the entirety of the fight was animated to the quality that I know they can animate. Parts of it were, but not the whole thing. And I wish we would have gotten just that Tournament of Power Jiren fight level of animation that like through the whole way through on this one. Something like that. I'm very happy with it, but it could have been even better.
It's kind of funny, right? Because there are moments throughout Dragon Ball Z or Kai where they're clearly big, important moments and should warrant all the best animation, all the time that they could warrant to make them as good as possible. I can only imagine it was honestly probably problems akin to Dragon Ball Super, where the production schedule was so... I mean, when you had to make an episode every week and you only have so many animators, I think I've seen Totally Not Mark on YouTube talk about this, where there are certain episodes are taken over by different studios or sub studios or animation directors and animators, such that that's why some of the animation looks wildly different at times. And that's just a matter of time and money. And that's why like the Cell and Goku fight is one like that, right? Where there are parts of it that are animated unbelievably well, look incredible. And there are other parts where you're like, I think I could have drawn better than that.
Yeah, and I mean, gosh, whenever I need to point out something bad, I'm going to point at Super, unfortunately. But there are so many episodes in Super where, I mean, characters are drawn wrong, things don't look right. And we get a little bit of that in the Buu saga and Cell saga and things like that. And it just sucks because you see fantastic animation quality, fantastic choreography, and then a lot of the times it's set right next to something that's subpar. And so you get that drastic difference put right in front of you and you go, oh, why didn't you just do the whole thing good? But when you bring up production schedules like that, it makes sense. There's only so much that they can do on the schedule they're given. And I think we've harped on this before, at least in private, where I wish they would just take their time and just make the perfect Dragon Ball set and charge whatever amount of money they wanted for it.
Yeah, 100%. I hope that Toei Animation is kind of learning from their past mistakes, especially after their mistakes with Super. I mean, we've got Dragon Ball Daima coming up. It sounds like they're taking their time with that, which is good. I hope that they do. I mean, I guess we're getting off on a little bit of a tangent. So kind of
Well,
like
I think it's
turning back
important though,
to,
right? I think the
yeah,
discussion we're having is important, especially with something like Daima, because I just want to touch on it for a second since you brought it up. If it's animated well and done well the whole way through, even if it's kind of a filler story or doesn't really like it doesn't really matter to the Dragon Ball universe, I want to reward it with my patronage if it's done well because I want them to see the like I want them to be rewarded for actually doing things correctly.
that's an interesting point too, because diving in a little bit even more into that, the the Dragon Ball superhero movie initially was not doing well in the box offices at all because people were so turned off by the I think most of it was people were turned off by the change in animation because there was kind of like this CG 3D sort of animation. But the other difference in the movie was the fact that they weren't focusing on Goku and Vegeta. They were focusing on Gohan and Piccolo. So I was worried. I think the movie ended up doing well, but I was worried that the what Toei Animation was going to take from that was, oh, the fan base doesn't care about our side characters or our other cast like Gohan and Piccolo. They only care when we're focusing on characters like Goku and Vegeta. And really, it was more the animation that people had an issue with. So, to your point, I know a lot of people online have kind of like bashed Daima or said, this isn't what we wanted. But I agree. I hope that if it's done well, and it sounds like they are trying to, that the fan base goes out and supports it and shows, hey, we want more of this quality for our Dragon Ball.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if you're willing to criticize something when it does poorly, you need to be willing to praise it when it does well. And if the only critique I have for Daima when it comes out is that it's not a canon story or something like that, or it's a little bit too kid focused or something, I have a lot of concerns that this could turn into something weird. But if most of those concerns go away and it's actually a pretty decent show, even if it is kind of a chibi Dragon Ball, if I have fun watching it and it's animated well and does all the other stuff right, like I'm going to point that out and I'm going to sing its praises and I'm going to watch it. I'm going to give it all the attention and love that it deserves if they do a good job with it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I hope they do it well, and I hope that the fan base receives it well if they do. Kind of turning back to this chunk of episodes for Kai, I should say, I feel like, honestly, it probably sounded like I was being pretty harsh on it. A lot of my opinions about this version are almost certainly being colored by nostalgia. I'll say this to start. The elements of the music are not colored by nostalgia. They chose poor spots to place the music that they picked.
Well, the interesting thing about making something later is that you still have access to the first stuff. So you have to improve it if you're going to change it.
Right. Yes, exactly. So I'm going to knock them for points on the music. Some of my opinions about the dialogue, though, is almost certainly nostalgia. There's like a certain way that the characters were portrayed in the original that I think I enjoyed it, or I maybe have a soft spot for it. If I pull myself or try to pull myself away from that nostalgia and those feelings and just look at these episodes as a whole without the old version to compare it to, I think it's a good experience. I think the worst part, again, is the music. But music aside, I think that the dialogue delivery is good. I think that overall, the writing for the dialogue is solid. I don't think there are as many awkward parts, either awkward writing or awkward deliveries as the old one. And again, I'm kind of comparing it again, but I think that they did an overall good job. I think that they could have tightened up a few things here and there, fixed the music for sure, but I think that it is a good watch, and it still elicits in like those strong feelings that I have for the characters like Vegeta.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with everything that you said. And I mean, Kai at least feels like it's giving us a fairly well thought through, polished product. Whereas at moments in the original, there are times where the show feels like it's just hanging on something for too long, or you get moments where something happens and you get a good 10 seconds of characters just standing there with their mouths open making weird noises, like we don't get any of that stuff. I'm glad that it's polished up, and it's been that way the whole time. And the pacing in this set of episodes, I would say, is fine. It's not perfect. There's still some stuff that they could have, cut out a little bit. There's some moments, I pointed one out to Todd off camera, where Trunks and Goten are flying off to go see the evil wizard and the Majins and all that stuff. And there's a moment where Goten stops during their excitement. He goes, "Hey, Trunks." He goes, "What's a Majin?" And Trunks kind of like stops and falls into the water because, they didn't even think that. They don't even know what they're going to fight, right? Well, it should have stopped there. And then we get another scene of Trunks trying to explain what Majins are. And it's another like 30 seconds of him stumbling through words. I don't know why it's in it.
At least 30 seconds. Yeah, Dayton actually pointed that out. And Dayton's idea for how to truncate that was actually a really good one, where just have Goten say, "What's a Majin?" and Trunks fall into the water. And that's a perfect cut. Like that is the delivery. That is the joke. And that's where you should just cut and move to another scene. But they have a good minute-long explanation there that just drags the gag down, honestly.
Yeah, and it's just, there's a number of moments that are similar to that one. That's just an example. But I mean, over the course of, the 60 some odd episodes that Kai, the final chapters, covers, you could probably weed out another 2, 3, 4 episodes with just little extra things like that were added.
Yeah. Yeah, I very much agree. Somewhere in the middle, either the Frieza or the Cell arc, I think, is where they probably had their pacing the best. But the Saiyan arc was too fast, and I think the Buu arc is too drawn out, at least in parts.
Yeah, I mean, especially the very beginning. We spent way too much time in high school, but we're not covering that right now. We're covering the Babidi arc as labeled by the wiki. God, I'm still gonna screw this whole thing up. But yeah, so far, if my final verdict on all of this is that it's a lot of fun. It's a good watch. Could it be better? Yeah. And I think you're right. I think the music is probably the weakest point out of all these episodes, but I can live with that. The dialogue gets the job done. In some areas it's worse. In some areas it's actually better. So yeah, I got to say, all passing grades on me, except for the music.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel the same. As much as I was kind of, ripping on it or saying, like, I liked this better or would have changed this, it's still a good watch. It's still enjoyable. Fix the fucking music, though. Like,
Yep.
But yeah, everything else I enjoyed. I think that they did a good job of truncating the fights and everything. Honestly, I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. Did you have anything else you wanted to discuss, Dayton?
No, I think we got this thing pretty well wrapped up, and let's go ahead and start working our way towards the big baddie of the final chapters.
Yeah, that'll be next time. But that's it for this episode of Instant Transmission, where we discuss everything Dragon Ball. This has been your host, Todd.
And Dayton.
Don't forget, we're on Patreon and Twitter. If you want to help us make better content, you can find us at patreon.com/ITDBpodcast and over on Twitter or X at x.com/ITDBpodcast. Be sure to join us next time as we release the gooey gumball of goodness in the Majin Buu arc. While Goku and Vegeta settle their grudge match, Majin Buu has harnessed all the energy he needs to be reawakened. Gohan's going to have to face his fears and step up against Dabura, Babidi, and possibly Majin Buu.
Ooh, so spooky.
Will Goku be able to stop Vegeta in time to help against Majin Buu? Can Gohan tap into his hidden potential to beat Dabura and Babidi? What do you think the king of all demons tastes like? Find out next time. And to all our fellow Dragon Ball fans, stay safe out there and remember to keep rocking the dragon.
Oh, if only our fandom could see the shitty notes page that we work off of. Dear God.
Don't give away our secrets.
No shit.